Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're having a great Saturday so far, and welcome to this brief weekend update I wanted to do. I think it's useful to keep an eye on the markets in the weekend as well. Obviously, you should always take the price action in the weekend with a grain of salt. I mean, what we've seen so far is that basically for the entire day so far, so for the last, 17 hours, volume has been very, very low, right? And volume is the number one thing you need to get decisive moves. We've had some price action today, but it's been mostly flat. So when looking at Bitcoin, there's not much going on, but there is a lot going on in the market. So that's what I briefly wanted to talk about. Mantra, for example, the coin that crashed from I think $10 down to like 30 cents, is rallying quite a bit. But in general, there's quite a lot of momentum. So we'll talk about that later. I have some thoughts on the next narrative that could potentially do well, and we'll take a look at some data, some statistics on that. And just outside of that, just wanted to give you my thoughts on the market right now and what's going on. There's some fundamental developments as well. I mean, the stock market's obviously closed. Is closed, and it closed yesterday quite in instability, I'd say. But ultimately, the fundamentals, as it stands right now, are still good. And right now, the main news that we have are obviously obviously the talks between the US and China in Geneva. There's low expectations, or at least I read in a lot of places that there's low expectations. So that opens up the possibility for some sort of relief on Monday, because they are talking the entirety of today into tomorrow. So you'd think that they will come to some sort of early plan, right? And then I'm not talking about a trade deal. It's much too early to talk about a trade deal. For those of you who still remember, back in, I think, 2019 or 2018, when the US and China also had some heightened tensions, which obviously have been there since then. Back then, it also took a very long time to get to a deal, right? So I don't expect that. But the fact that they're talking for this amount of time, I mean, I think there's at least a possibility on Monday to get some relief, and that's bullish for the general capital markets, and therefore also bullish for Bitcoin. At this point of time, if we take a look at some data right here, what you can see, if we take a look at the Coinbase Bitcoin price, is that there we also still have a premium, so that's bullish as well. And we should not forget, talking about Bitcoin specifically here, we should not forget that, and I've said this for the last 2 days, as long as we're holding this level right here, I would say at 101,000 and 101,500, especially 101,500, I'd say we're still bullish, right? And you should still expect more bullish momentum into the POC right here at 105,000 and 106,000. However, even though I think there's a lot of activity for altcoins, and you can also see that right now there's a lot of alerts going off for me personally, I think you should avoid the chop, right? So if we take a look at the 1 hour time frame here, the main areas to look for trades, and whether that's a long or short depends on the reaction we get, is either at 106 or maybe 105, but that remains a bit more risky, or right here at 101.5. Right now we're in the middle of that, right? So if you're longing Bitcoin, there's no way you get a good risk reward unless you have some sort of a scalping strategy that will work in these market circumstances. So no, Bitcoin specifically, I would say it's most likely, given what we're seeing from the fundamentals, or at least the fundamental development in the last couple of weeks, in combination with the technical structure here, I would say it's most likely that, we'll retest support. But that we will be able to hold that, and that we will still see a continuation into 105 and 106. So that's what I would say is most likely. But at this point of time, specifically, I don't really see any directional trade for Bitcoin specifically. But there are some altcoins and some categories where I think that is a possibility, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. First, let's look at some interesting coins here. So first of all, XRP. XRP has continued to be strong over the course of today, as expected this morning. My opinion on this is exactly the same. All right, to get a move into, I think this morning we talked about 2.45. So far we reached 2.44. Get one more spike up higher, definitely possible. But ultimately I do think we will first pull back and settle down a bit here in the area around 2.32 before we can see continuation above the point of control area towards 2.6. And talking about Ethereum here, which is one of the most interesting coins in my eyes. This is actually rallying quite a bit. But we're nearing some major resistance levels right here as well, towards especially 2600, where we have a point of control area and an imbalance. So I think for Ethereum, a pullback is also closer than a bounce. Let's keep it at that, all right? And then the most relevant levels to look at for Ethereum are 2600, where we have major resistance, and then the main support level I'm looking at is right here between 2100 and 2000 for a potential long. But more on that later, and I'll definitely keep you updated on this as well. Now, talking about altcoins, there's a lot of altcoins moving, right? So Ohm, for example, has quite a lot of momentum. Kaito at this point of time has quite a lot of momentum, but there's a huge amount of coins that actually have a lot of volume right now. There's too many coins for me to talk about. So the one thing I wanted to talk about with all of you is a narrative that is doing quite well over the course of today, and that's this blue line right here, and that's RWA, or real world assets. So that's what I wanted to focus on. In general, I think that's one of the best narratives, and I still think that looking at some coins within that narrative, there still is quite a lot of potential as well to the upside, right? So then when we're talking about those coins, most of these are incorrect. In my eyes, some of the coins I think you should focus on are reserve rights. So that's RSR. Mantra, I'm not sure what's going on there, but that's up about 26% in the last hour. So keep an eye on that as well, but that's going to be very tricky. And a personal favorite that two more. First of all, Syrup. Syrup is doing extremely well right here. Volume is surging, and fundamentals behind this project are doing very well as well. So this is Maple Finance, just so you know. And then outside of that, a personal favorite, which I have. Usual. Usual is trying to break out sustainably above that level at 15 cents, losing some momentum right now, so be careful, right? I would not buy this at market, but definitely a coin to keep your eyes on. Those are my thoughts for now, all right? Those are my thoughts on the general fundamentals, Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, and some altcoins, but specifically RWA altcoins for now. I'd like to wish you all a great rest of your Saturday. I'll be back with more videos tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care, and bye.